So coming up this weekend is going to be UFC Fight Night Yusuff versus Barboza, and before we do get into any of that, I do have quite a few things I need to address, and the first one is a big thank you to everybody who has subscribed to my channel. We recently reached 5,000 subscribers, and that is a massive milestone. I'd like to thank everybody who has watched my content just at any point of time. I've done YouTube for quite a while now. I started this YouTube channel over 2 years ago, and it's so good to see it keep growing and see the community that we have built here. So thank you guys so much for everybody that does watch my content, that does comment, and just in general is a supporter. Thank you guys so much for that. It is very awesome to see the community that we are building here. But the next one that I do have to address is for this card. I'm actually going to miss it. I'm going to be missing this card, unfortunately. I do have an event on this weekend that is on at the exact same time as the event, so I'm not going to watch it live, but I will watch the replay, of course, and especially the highlights, because I think that this card could produce quite a lot of them. I'm very much looking forward to this card. Unfortunately, last week was a bit of a blunder. It wasn't the best card for me. I did go 60% on my picks, which is just not good enough, to be honest, but I think a lot of people unfortunately did get burned by that card. I think this one could be much better in terms of picks and also in terms of entertainment. I think this should be a pretty good one. So with all of that being said, let's get into it. And with the first fight of the night, we've got Ashley Yoder taking on Emily Ducote. And I did say that this should be a pretty good card for picks, but I'm going to be honest with you guys. I don't know how to feel about Emily Ducote because she really impressed me in her UFC debut. She took on Jessica Penne, who at the time was actually ranked. She became ranked herself off that win. And then she took on Angela Hill. And this performance against Angela Hill was really disappointing. I mean, in that matchup, if you do watch it, all she does is stand at range and watch Angela Hill beat her up for 3 rounds. There's not a lot of volume coming out of Ducote, and Angela Hill's just piecing her apart, and Ducote never really gets anything going throughout the fight. And then when she does take on Lupita Godinez is a good fighter that can be understood. And not necessarily it's the fact that she lost to Angela Hill, because Angela Hill is a pretty good fighter and is still fighting some pretty decent competition and doing somewhat well recently. But it's just the fact that the way that she lost to Angela Hill, she just got pieced apart and did absolutely nothing. Now, Ashley Yoder is an interesting sort of fighter because she can fight in quite a few different ways. She can wrestle, she can grapple, but she is mostly a striker that likes to strike from range. I'm getting ads everywhere. But the thing is with her, she's almost 36 years old. She hasn't beaten a good opponent in a long time. Her most recent win is 3 years ago over Miranda Granger, who was on a losing streak or went on a losing streak, including this fight here. I mean, she's been doing different things outside of MMA. I think she was on like a reality TV show. So she's just up to different things. She seems to be somewhat interested in MMA still, but I mean, like, at the end of the day, Emily Ducote, she's a black belt in BJJ. She's a former Invicta champion. She is the prospect on the rise, although she has had 20 pro fights. I'm going to go with Emily Ducote by decision here. This is a low confidence pick, though. You don't know how Yoda's going to look after 2 years away. And stylistically, she does have the reach advantage and the height advantage significantly. So maybe she could do what Angela Hill did. I just think that Angela Hill is much better than Ashley Yoder, and she even beat Ashley Yoder. So I'm going with Ducote. Everyone's going with Ducote, but at minus 285 right now, I just don't think so. I think we'll move on to the next one. Now, Chris Gutierrez versus Alatengheili. This should be a pretty fun fight. Now, this has been kind of rebooked through a couple of fights being cancelled. Chris Gutierrez was going to take on Montel Jackson. Alatengheili was going to be taking on Rani Yahya. And both of Yahya and Jackson pulled out of their fights, so they put this one together. I think this could be a very good fight, and I think there is potential for an upset as well. The way that Alatengheili fights is he can wrestle. He is a wrestler, kind of, but he is mostly a technical striker, but he doesn't throw a lot of volume. And the problem with being a very technical striker in the way that he absorbs more strikes than he lands. Now, that's not really a good thing. He's a pretty low volume guy, very technical. He waits for his shots to come, and sometimes they don't really ever come, and he does resort to his wrestling at times. But Alatengheili, negative striking differential, pretty low volume guy. As for Chris Gutierrez, he was on all the momentum coming into his fight against Pedro Munoz. I really wanted to pick Munoz. I'm still kicking myself for not doing that because I saw it come in and I messed up there, unfortunately. He KO'd Frankie Edgar. I mean, I don't know how to really feel about that win. And before that was Danar Bakare, who's kind of at the bottom of 135 right now. Not going to say anything about Chairez. Rest in peace to Chairez. And Andre Ewell did get cut from the UFC himself. But the thing about Chris Gutierrez is, man, I think that he can beat Alatengheili. I think this is a pretty good stylistic matchup for him. The way that Gutierrez likes to come into his fights, he's very heavy on the leg kicks, and he comes in with the leg kicks early on, and once you slow down, that's when he can really get his strikes going, really get his volume going. He can wrestle, but he's more of a striker. Same sort of thing with Alatengheili. I think that we're going to see Alatengheili just do a little bit too much waiting, and it's going to be Chris Gutierrez setting the pace and just kind of determining how the fight's going to play out, really. So that's why I'm going to go with Gutierrez. Low confidence in Gutierrez, though, because I think Alatengheili is a decent fighter. I think he is underrated, but at the end of the day, he hasn't really beaten the same level of competition as Chris Gutierrez has in the UFC either. So give me Gutierrez. I'm going to go again. Gutierrez decision. Could I see a late finish? Absolutely. But I think Alatengheili is a pretty tough dude, and I think we do see this fight go 3 rounds. Now we've got Irina Alekseeva taking on Melissa Dixon. I don't know how good Alekseeva is still, man. Like, she got signed to the UFC. She was 4-1. That one loss coming to an opponent that didn't seem that great. She's coming off a win in Bellator. And then she took on Stephanie Edgar. And in my opinion, Stephanie Edgar and Alekseeva are very, very similar fighters. They do have judo backgrounds. They can grapple. Their striking isn't that great. And she goes out there against Edgar, misses weight, does the shadow boxing on the scales, makes, honestly, a little bit of a fool of herself. Everyone's like, oh man, this girl's not going to win, no way. I really thought Edgar was going to beat her as well, and Alekseeva rolls to a knee bar and subs her in the first round after an awkward sort of clinch position. Melissa Dixon, in my opinion, is really good. The problem with Melissa Dixon is I thought that in her last fight against Daria Zelenskova, I thought she looked not great at all. Daria Zelenskova is now signed to the UFC. She got a win, and now she's in the UFC herself. And that was a pretty bad stoppage from the referee, to be honest. Now, I do understand the way that it played out, the way that the fight played out in general, was Daria was absolutely picking her apart from range and was looking really, really good in that fight. But eventually, Melissa Dixon closes the distance, gets the clinch, gets a takedown, and ends up on top. And then she gets some really good ground and pound going. And Daria's kind of moving around, you know, Melissa Dixon's on her back, and then Daria kind of falls to guard, and then the ref stops it with 1 second left in round 1. Terrible, terrible stoppage. I think that fight could have gone to round 2, and Dixon would have probably lost. But aside from that, I think she's good. You know, she hasn't really beaten a bad competition at all, and she's looked good doing it. She is a striker, but the problem with Melissa Dixon is she clinches way too much. Like, every time that someone is pressuring forward and throwing volume against her, she will choose to clinch. That's going to be a bad, bad idea in this matchup. I think Melissa Dixon should be the better striker. I mean, we don't really know still how good Alekseeva really is. And I think if Dixon can keep this fight on the feet and she chooses not to grapple, not to clinch with Alekseeva, who will probably be the better grappler, she should win this fight on the feet. So I'm going to go with Melissa Dixon to win a decision by keeping the fight on the feet and outstriking Alekseeva. But if Dixon comes into this matchup and she is getting pressured and she does choose to clinch and she does choose to shoot for takedowns, I mean, I could really see Alekseeva submitting her as well. So once again, a fight I could truly see the upset happening in. But I'm still going to go with Dixon because I think that she is the better striker. And I still don't really know how good Alekseeva really is. We're about to find out, though. Maybe Alekseeva makes weight as well. Hopefully, Dixon, I think, missed weight as well in one of her recent matchups that she had booked. So let's see if they both make weight. And let's see how the fight does play out. Now we've got Terrance McKinney taking on Brendon Marotte. Why am I getting so many ads all of a sudden? This is a matchup that was made just earlier this week. I think it was actually made like a couple of days ago at the time of me recording this video. Now, I am going to go with McKinney. I am going to go with McKinney by round 1 KO as well. Brendon Marotte, I went and watched his fights. I just wasn't too impressed with him, man. Like, he doesn't seem... Well, it's interesting that I said that. I was actually just about to say he doesn't seem too big for lightweight, although he is also 5'10". It's interesting he's fought at 145 in the past. I think he's also fought at welterweight in the past as well, if that means something. But McKinney is minus 500 in this matchup. That's the opening odds. They will probably widen. I can definitely see value on McKinney round 1 KO. But as for Brendon Marotte, he is a striker that can wrestle. He does train out of the New England cartel, but the thing about Marotte is I just wasn't that impressed when I was watching his fights, man. Like, the thing about Marotte is he looks good when he's coming forward, he throws a lot of leg kicks, but when he's getting pressured, he doesn't look good moving backwards. He doesn't really take strikes too well. I watched his fight in a split decision win against Dan Ducote, and I understand that was almost 4 years ago, but he was closing his eyes in that matchup. Like, that's a big no-go. Like, you know, like, I think McKinney, I know McKinney is unreliable himself. McKinney has bad cardio. He's got bad technique. He's hittable himself. But man, McKinney, if McKinney comes out here aggressive, he should just be able to deal with Marotte pretty easily. I see McKinney coming out, he can get a round 1 KO. I was going to say, yeah, just like his fight against Mike Brendon. I didn't realize it was that recent, but my memory is gone. Anyway, I've got McKinney round 1 KO. I just was not impressed by Marotte. And the thing is as well, McKinney, if he wanted to, could out-wrestle Marotte as well. So give me McKinney round 1 KO in this matchup. Maybe the submission as well could be a very sneaky bet to play. If McKinney chooses to wrestle and grapple, you definitely could potentially see a submission out of McKinney. Now we've got Lisboa taking on Ravena Oliveira. Now, the thing about Ravena Oliveira, she does have a few different names. I believe her maiden name is Oliveira, but now she's got a different surname in Canaldi, or maybe that's her nickname. I'm not too sure, but you can find Ravena Oliveira's fights under Ravena Canaldi, under Ravena Oliveira, and under something else as well. There's a bunch of things that you can see her fights under. But the thing about Ravena Oliveira is I feel like she's a very similar fighter to Tainara Lisboa, but just not as good. And that is probably why the odds are what they are. It's interesting to note that Lisboa was actually meant to fight against Zelenzakova, who I'm very high on. I would have picked Zelenzakova in that matchup, and Zelenzakova is that girl that I was talking about that was beating up Melissa Dixon until she did end up losing. Now, Lisboa, she's got a kickboxing background. She fought against Shevchenko and Muay Thai back in the day. She come in against Jessica Rose Clark. I'm going to say I picked Jessica Rose Clark in that matchup, man. I thought that Rose Clark was going to be able to just out-wrestle her, to be honest, and that isn't really what happened at all. Lisboa looked really good on the feet. Oliveira is a striker. Lisboa is the better striker. I think we're going to see Lisboa just beat up Oliveira on the feet, and honestly, Ravena Oliveira has never fought anyone that great. Simone da Silva, 8-5 MMA fighter with a boxing background as well. I think Simone da Silva, am I correct in saying this? I'm going to get sidetracked. Is the one that fought Chris Cyborg in boxing. Am I correct in saying that? I could be wrong. Yes, I'm correct. Yes, she fought Chris Cyborg in boxing. Completely off topic, but okay, I'm going with Lisboa. I think Lisboa beats her. I think Lisboa finishes her as well. I think Lisboa is much better than Oliveira. A relatively confident pick. I'm never that confident in women's MMA. I can never really seem to get it correct. But Lisboa should be able to finish Oliveira in this matchup. I think that she is the better fighter kind of everywhere, to be honest with you. Now we've got Darren Elkins taking on TJ Brown. Now, Darren Elkins is a pretty popular underdog this week. Personally, I just can't do it. I just can't pick Darren Elkins anymore. The thing about Elkins, man, I do love Darren Elkins. I remember the first coming into MMA and Darren Elkins, I think it was Mirsad Bektic. Was this fight in like 2017? Yes, it was in 2017. I started watching MMA, I think it was like 2016 era, sort of area. And I remember watching this fight very, very well. And what a comeback that was. If you have not seen this fight, you have to watch this fight. It is crazy. But the problem with Darren Elkins is, man, he has taken a lot of damage in his career. And he just didn't look good against JSP. Now, I understand that JSP is a top 15 sort of level guy, like a borderline top 15 guy. Jonathan Pearce is a guy that has been kind of coming in and out of that number 15 ranking for a while, kind of like Alekseeva was for a while as well. And JSP just kind of beats him up, and it was kind of hard to watch because you were watching a nearly 40-year-old Darren Elkins who has just taken so much damage in his career. And I understand TJ Brown's not really a guy that is just going to put a beating on somebody. But at this point, I know that TJ Brown's not a young guy himself, but I think TJ Brown still kind of got it in him, you know? He is a wrestler, TJ Brown. He can strike. He can make bad, very, very poor fight IQ decisions on the mat as well. That is why he lost to Shea Leonard and Becky, was because he was making bad decisions in the grappling. He went out there and beat Eric Silva. Honestly, I couldn't believe it. Made me look like an absolute idiot because I was pretty high on Eric Silva. I thought he looked really good on Dana White's Contender Series, although it was against a pretty undersized opponent. But went out there, dominated Alekseeva, round 1 finish there. Lost to Algio, but Algio is good. You know, I'm going to go TJ Brown. I think he can out-wrestle Darren Elkins here. I think Darren Elkins is tough enough to still make it the distance, but Elkins just doesn't have it no more, man. We see Elkins slow down in second round, third round. His cardio is kind of going a little bit. I know he won relatively recently, but I just can't pick Elkins anymore. I just can't do it. The next fight is Christian Rodriguez taking on Cameron Saaiman, and I am going to be picking what I'm assuming is going to be a very popular underdog this week in Cameron Saaiman to win this matchup here. Now, Cameron Saaiman, you might very heavily disagree with this. I don't think he's looked super impressive in his UFC run, but if you do consider it, he's not even 23 years old yet, and he has been beating some pretty decent guys. Now, Terrance Mitchell, we understand that Terrance Mitchell may not be the best fighter in the world, but he did deal with Terrance Mitchell pretty easily. Martinez, that was a weird fight, but he won by decision against a dangerous fighter. Stephen Kozlo, another short notice opponent, but Kozlo was a very good grappler, and we got to see how good Saaiman's grappling really was in that fight. I think that was a really good fight to truly showcase how good Saaiman is at grappling. And then Josh Wayne Kim. I think that Josh Wayne Kim, I understand this win, has actually aged very poorly because now Josh Wayne Kim has gone on to lose. But I think this is still probably his best performance. I thought Josh Wayne Kim was going to win this matchup, and Cameron Saaiman looked really good in that fight and knocked out Josh Wayne Kim. And since then, he's gone 3-0 in the UFC. Hasn't necessarily put on the best performances, but the skill set is truly there. The thing about Christian Rodriguez is, I think he's actually really underrated, but I do think Saaiman can get past him. The thing about Christian Rodriguez is, on the feet, he's a boxer. That is what he does, but he's a really underrated grappler, and we did see that against Raul Rosas. We especially saw that when he took on Jonathan Pearce. Now, he took on Jonathan Pearce on very short notice, upper weight class, and JSP, as I said, borderline top 15 guy at 145 in the UFC, and he held his own in the grappling. Now, yes, he did get out wrestled, he did get out grappled against a much bigger opponent, and I thought he still made a good showcase for himself. Then he beat Joshua Weems, but Weems coming on short notice himself. Pretty good fight, pretty easy win for Rodriguez, to be honest. But in this matchup, though, I think Saaiman's a better kickboxer. I understand that Saaiman's base is grappling. Not a lot of people really know that too much, but if you watch his amateur fights, he's only really grappling. Striking is something that I think he's kind of developed the whole time, or maybe he just thought he was better at grappling as an amateur, who knows. But anyway, Saaiman's a really good grappler, and I think that Saaiman can kind of keep up with Rodriguez if he chooses to go that way. But if Saaiman chooses to initiate the grappling, initiate the wrestling, he will get out-scrambled by C-Rod. C-Rod is really good at scrambles. He really is good at grappling. I think if this is a kickboxing fight, Saaiman is, in my opinion, the more unpredictable striker. He's got more weapons at his disposal. He can kick, he can punch. He's a kickboxer. But I think that he can kind of just outstrike C-Rod for 3 rounds if he plays it smart. If he chooses to grapple, he probably could do that, but the thing about C-Rod is he truly is that good in scrambles. I think we are going to see Saaiman get there and win. 80% picking Saaiman. Interesting. I'm seeing a lot of people on Twitter betting on Christian Rodriguez, which is why the line has kind of shifted from like minus 130 to minus 160. It is. So now Saaiman's a bigger underdog than he was. Now I've got Edgar Chairez taking on Daniel Lacerda. And this fight's going to be at 130 pounds. So it has been kind of shifted due to the short notice kind of nature of it. Now, this fight did happen relatively recently, and they've been rebooked just kind of to get it quickly over and done with. I am picking Chairez to win this fight. I picked Chairez to win the initial fight. Once again, Lacerda was a pretty popular underdog when the first fight happened. He still is a popular underdog now. And I understand why, because, you know, Edgar Chairez, I don't think he should be minus 280 in this matchup. The thing about the 130 pounds is, though, this will greatly benefit Edgar Chairez. Because if you look at Edgar Chairez, this guy is absolutely massive for 125 pounds. He is huge for flyweight. He looked big against Tatsuro Taira. He looked gigantic against Clayton Carpenter. He looked pretty big against Lacerda. I think that I could see Lacerda winning this fight, to be honest with you. But the thing is, Chairez at 130 pounds, he's going to be bigger, stronger. I think Chairez has more ways to win the fight as well. Like, we don't really know how good Lacerda is. Like, Lacerda's fun, but he just doesn't win fights, you know. I think these two hittable. I think that Chairez as well doesn't have to cut down to 125. He's going to have the cardio to go 3 rounds. He didn't have the cardio on the Contender Series, although he did take it on short notice, though. So, yeah, I'm going to go with Chairez. That was a pretty terrible breakdown from me, I'm sorry, but I'm going to go Chairez to win by finish as well late in the matchup. Kind of a similar breakdown to just the first fight. It's just a rebooked fight. I don't have too much more to add. I am sorry. That was a bad breakdown of that fight. Michel Pereira taking on Andre Petroski. I'm very confident that Michel Pereira wins this fight, and the odds for this fight are very close. Michel Pereira is like minus 130, minus 140, and Andre Petroski is like just barely an underdog, like plus 110 or so. Michel Pereira really should win this fight, and I will be disappointed enough if he loses. The thing about the matchup is it's short notice for Petroski. Petroski, in general, has really bad cardio. Like, he gasses out all the time. Like, he gassed out against GM3 badly. He gassed out against Terrance. I think he finished Maximov in like 40 seconds, so he didn't gas out against him. But the thing about Petroski is, man, like, even Michael Gilmore was getting the better of him in one of those rounds that the fight did take place in. If you watch Petroski versus GM3, Petroski's just absolutely smashing these massive hooks that are coming from the grandstands. And GM3, old man GM3, is kind of like slipping out of the way. GM3 never does that, dude. But the thing about Andre Petroski is his striking is so slow. He's very powerful because he's putting everything into his shots, but he's so slow, man. Michel Pereira is going to see everything he's got coming on the feet, and it's just going to be fast. He's going to be better striker. He's going to be ripping the body. The thing about Michel Pereira is his takedown defense is good as well. He is moving up from 170, but that's probably going to be a really good thing, especially because he's probably going to keep that speed that he had at 170. Now moving up to 185, taking on a slow guy on the feet in Andre. Now I understand Andre's a wrestler and a grappler, and Pereira is a striker. Pereira's takedown defense has held up so far. Petroski should definitely try and get this fight to the mat, and if he does, he probably can have success. But as long as the fight's on the feet, Michel Pereira is going to be so live to knock him out, man. The thing about Andre Petroski is, as I said, really bad cardio. Michel Pereira's got really bad cardio, though, to be fair to him as well. But if the fight stays on the feet, man, Pereira's going to be so much better at striking than him. I think he's going to knock out Petroski and get the win in his first fight at 185. Now we've got Jonathan Martinez taking on Adrian Yanez. This is a good fight. I believe these guys are still both ranked, despite Yanez coming off that loss to Rob Font. Jonathan Martinez recently, I thought he lost to Said Nurmagomedov, to be honest, but it is what it is. He got past him. And before that, he beat Cub Swanson with those leg kicks, really dominated Cub Swanson in that matchup using his kicks. I apologize for that awkward cut. I had to cough, so I panicked and stopped the recording. But we're back. Jonathan Martinez is a Muay Thai striker. Adrian Yanez is a boxer. Now, in my opinion, overall, in pure striking, in a pure striking matchup, Adrian Yanez should be able to win this fight. I think that Adrian Yanez looks really, really good when he's going forward, but he looks really, really bad when he's going backwards. And every single time Yanez has been in a situation where he's moving backwards and his opponent is moving forward, he doesn't look that great. And that has happened in every single fight that he's had in the UFC. To be honest, like Randy Costa looked really good in round number 1 because Randy Costa was the guy moving forward, was the guy kind of having his way, determining the pace and the way that the fight is going. Davey Grant had a lot of success moving Yanez back. A lot of people think that Grant won that fight. Some people think that Grant won all 3 rounds in that matchup. Tony Kelly, I mean, he beat Tony Kelly pretty easily. But to be fair, like coming into the Rob Font fight, in hindsight, really, we hadn't really seen Yanez take on the best fighters in the world, but he took on Rob Font. He was looking okay, and then Rob Font got him with a couple good shots, and Yanez kind of backed up and like wilted a little bit, maybe folded under pressure, got KO'd by a pretty massive shot though. But the thing about Martinez is he's not really a guy that his whole game is moving forward and pushing forward. Now, yes, he does do that, and yes, he can do that. But the thing about Martinez is, man, he goes out there and tries to light up your legs. Those leg kicks are money for him. He did finish Swanson with those leg kicks. He throws a lot of body kicks as well. But he's not going to be in Yanez's face. He's not going to be pushing him back so much, whereas Yanez is going to have no space. He's going to have to be moving backwards all the time. He's going to have no opportunity to throw his own shots. I think he is. So I'm going to go with Yanez in this matchup. I would be very surprised if this fight went down to the ground. I don't really know who would have the advantage in a grappling fight. Maybe it would be Martinez, but I'm still going to go with Yanez to win this fight. I think Yanez, if he keeps this fight on the feet, I think he can be the one kind of dictating the pace, landing the bigger shots as well with his boxing, closing the distance. So give me Yanez to win this matchup by KO. I'll go with knockout, like round 3 after a very competitive fight. Now we've got Jennifer Maia taking on Viviane Araujo. I'm pretty confident that Maia should be able to win this matchup. Jennifer Maia, once again, I should have seen it coming. I really considered picking Maia to beat O'Neal because I've never really been that sold on Casey O'Neal, but I still picked O'Neal anyway. Like, what am I doing? Honestly, I'm just throwing away easy underdog picks at this point, but I think Jennifer Maia at minus 150 as well should really be able to beat Viviane Araujo. And the thing about Araujo is she is not young herself. Now, yes, she hasn't had that many fights, but she's almost 37 years old. And she is not really looking that great. Now, she is dangerous in round number 1, always. I believe she had Rebus in a lot of trouble in round 1. She had a pretty good moments at the start of the Grasso fight, but faded a little bit. She beat Andrea Lee, which is a pretty good win. But Maia, outside of round 1, should be able to just kind of dictate this fight, keep it on the feet, potentially even just outstrike Viviane Araujo. And if she wanted to, I could see Maia out-wrestling and out-grappling Araujo as well. So I think this is a really good matchup for Jennifer Maia. I don't really see Jennifer Maia ever getting in a position again where she can get a title shot, but she should be able to beat the contenders like Viviane Araujo, in my opinion. So give me Maia. I think Maia wins a decision in this fight. And now we move on to the main event. Sodiq Yusuff taking on Edson Barboza. This is a good one. This is a really good fight. Now, it's not really like a big name value main event, but I do understand that Edson Barboza still holds a pretty big name value, and he is a very exciting guy to watch, even though he's still getting up there in age. But you look at Edson Barboza, man, like this guy, he's built just like me. It's crazy how shredded he is, and he's still in very good physical shape for a guy the age that he is, and he is coming off that massive win against Billy Q, and that was a really good comeback win for him because he was on a 2-fight losing streak. He didn't look good against Bryce Mitchell. Very bad stylistic matchup, I know, but Bryce Mitchell still was able to dominate that fight, even dropped him at one point in that matchup. Now, this is going to be a striking fight, and striking fights really favor Edson Barboza, and that's why I think that he should be able to win this matchup. Now, Sodiq Yusuff, he's coming off a really bad injury because I was going to kind of say something like, you just dominated Don Shainis in like 40 seconds, absolutely disposed of him with ease, and you waited a year for your next fight, but it turns out he had a spine injury that required surgery. I think he might have had like another injury as well, and spine injuries are pretty serious stuff. He didn't deal with Alekseeva all that well either, and Alekseeva is a very good striker. Now, against Arnold Allen, he did outland Arnold Allen. He actually landed more volume than Allen, but Allen was able to knock him down. Allen was able to get in there, land big shots, and hurt him, and that is how Allen ended up winning that decision. Now, in this fight, I think Edson Barboza can kind of do that. Now, I understand that Sodiq Yusuff is probably going to be the guy trying to pressure forward, trying to come forward to initiate his striking, and Barboza might be a little bit on the back foot, but Barboza's always going to be dangerous on the feet. He's got those kicks, man. He's going to be absolutely sniping Sodiq Yusuff with his kicks to the head, to the body, to the legs, and his striking in general. Barboza's always been that guy with the striking, and I just don't see Yusuff kind of having the threat of the grappling there. The thing about when he took on Billy Q had the threat of the grappling, and Barboza was still able to KO with that brutal knee. Bryce Mitchell looks really good against Barboza because, to be honest with you, I think Barboza was absolutely terrified of getting taken down by Bryce Mitchell, and it just ended up happening. He did lose to Giga Chikadze. I did pick him to beat Chikadze. I just wasn't too sold on him at the time. I think Barboza gets it done, man. Like, I understand it's probably a pretty bad breakdown, but the way that the fight's gonna play out is Sodiq Yusuff is gonna be trying to close the distance with his shots. And I think Barboza can kind of keep him at range. He's got the height advantage. He's got the reach advantage as well. You know, we've seen Edson Barboza as high as 155. He should be a little bit bigger than him. I think he's going to be able to impose his will. And with his kickboxing sort of style, with his kicks, I think he should be able to kind of keep Yusuff at bay, smack up the body a bit, smack up the legs early on, and then just kind of make it a very uncomfortable fight for Sodiq Yusuff. So I'm going to go with Edson Barboza to win by decision, or very late finish, like a round 4, round 5 KO. So give me Barboza, man. I think that Barboza can do it. I think Barboza can, you know, have a little bit of a career resurgence. I think he can get past Yusuff. Yusuff's going to be throwing volume, but I think that when Barboza lands, he's going to be landing with a little bit more power. So give me Barboza in this matchup. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'm sorry, I'm not feeling 100% apparently. I had to cut this video up quite a bit, so hopefully it's not a mess. But let me know what you think in the comments below, and I'll see you guys in the next one.